Hello, I'm a newlywed. Divorce rates and marital strife are the most frequent within a year of marriage. Maybe that's why my husband and I are fighting a lot these days. It's not a big fight, but a minor quarrel. I realize that dating and marriage are different. Since we have lived together, I can see things that I didn't know before. His life patterns are very different too. Sometimes I regret why I got married. But my husband is good at housework. He tends to apologize first after our fight. Besides, we have an excellent mediator. If I fight with my husband and contact this person, he'll always come right away. And he's always on my side, so he's like heaven's mercy. Who is he? My father-in-law is the best mediator. We can't live without him. He's like a friend to me. He's the one who spent most of my time in my childhood. My husband is the owner chef of a Korean restaurant. He wanted to be a chef since he was young. My father-in-law works with him. He's working in the kitchen, not at the counter. Since he's old, he's not the chief though, but he wanted to work in the kitchen. So I made a spot for him in the kitchen. Don't make me just look at the paper because I'm old. Let me stand in front of the fire. That was his condition. My father-in-law is very good at cook. He's not licensed, but his knowledge and skills are gained from long experience. And my husband, who is the main chef, also acknowledged that. Plus, his cooking skills made me connect with him. I had a pretty dark childhood. My family was impoverished. My dad went bankrupt and lost his job just after I had celebrated my 100th day of birth. Since then, he has worked in day labor. He was looking and applying for a similar military job that he had done before, but it wasn't easy because of the job shortage. He painted all day long and worked so hard that he felt sick at the construction site, but he was not paid so much. My parents were heartbroken that they couldn't buy me new clothing when I was born. So she eventually left me at my grandmother's house and started working. At first, she washed the dishes at a restaurant. She got recognized for her cooking skills by the owner, who just happened to eat my mom's side dishes. So she was in charge of the kitchen. For that, her wage raised as well. My grandmother took care of me until I entered school. But within a month of starting school, my grandmother died. So I became a kid who plays alone at home after school. I was an only child, so I was even more lonely. I was timid and had only one or two close friends, and my house was shabby, so I couldn't bring my friends home to play. Anyway, there was no mom to play with me when I came home. So I had to grow up lonely when I have a lot of homework. I like that. I can forget my loneliness while doing my homework. But when I finished my reading, I still felt empty. There was an old computer at home, but it was slow. I couldn't play with it for a long time. I spent my time reading borrowed books in the library. But as I got used to loneliness, there was a change in my daily life. When I was 9 years old, there was a street food cart in front of the school. It's a dumplings shop that runs by an older man about my dad's age. The menu was meat dumplings, kimchi dumplings, and fried dumplings. He only sold 3 types of dumplings. His dumplings spread quickly, so kids bought them after school and mothers bought them for snacks. And he was also very generous. When the kids came to buy, he gave them 1 or 2 extra dumplings. I also wanted to buy his dumplings, but I couldn't because I was shy and couldn't talk to others. And one day, I was home alone that day. My mom called me and said that she would stop by my grandmother's cemetery, so she would be a little late. She told me that she put the money in her vanity table drawer and ordered the food that I want to eat with the money. Cash made me think of dumplings first, so I took the money and went to school. He was steaming the dumplings by himself. I hesitated for a long time and wandered around. That's when he approached me after seeing the 1,000 won in my hand. "Are you here to buy the dumplings?" he asked. I just nodded. "Then you should come and eat. Why are you doing that?" When he asked me, I didn't know what to say. I just said, "I'm scared." Then the older man smiled kindly. He held my hand and asked me what I wanted to eat at the food cart. I stuttered and ordered. He gave me 4 or 5 more than I paid. The dumplings were so good that day. I knew why people were looking for his dumpling place. As with everything, the first time is hard, and then the next one gets more manageable. So I have become a regular customer since then. I got a daily allowance from my mom and went to the older man after school to buy dumplings. When there were a lot of customers, I went home and came back to eat when he wasn't busy because I wanted to chat with him. He knew I was always alone at home. He told me that I could eat the dumplings and stay with him. He knew a lot of things and told me a lot of interesting stories. I once asked him why he sells dumplings in front of the school. He said, "I like to see young kids. I have a son just about the same age as Jesse, but I can't see him now." It seems like he was sad when he talked like that, so I couldn't ask any more questions. Although I was young, I knew he had a heartbreaking story behind him. My family didn't move when things got better though. We lived in the same neighbor our whole time. So I was with him together even though I was in high school. On my birthday, he gave me dumplings as well as small gifts. On his birthday, I saved up my pocket money. I bought him a present. So my parents naturally became close to him. They thanked him for taking good care of me. He always supported and cared for me like a friend and like my uncle. The day I took the college entrance exam, he came by my house early in the morning and gave me sticky rice cake and taffy to wish me good luck on my exam. Thanks to his support, I did well on the exam. I was able to get into the university I wanted. At that time, our family finances got a lot better. I didn't have much problem paying for my tuition. I also got a little help from the state scholarship. One day, he called and gave me a bag as an entrance gift. I didn't even think about it, so I was sad. So I firmly announced that I'd open a store when I made money after graduation. It was just before my first summer break since I started college. The final exams were over, and only the end of the lecture was left. On my way home in the evening, no dumpling street food cart was always in the same place. I thought he closed early that day because it was hot, because the dumplings weren't sold well in the summer. However, even the next day I couldn't see his cart. Although he didn't open the business, he stored his venue on the street, but it wasn't there either. That's when I felt terrible. I made a call right away, but the number wasn't in service. So I ran into his house, I knocked on the door, but there was no one else. I was knocking on the door for a long time, and a lady next door came out. He moved out. He took all his stuff out last night. Are you Jessie, the student? I said yes, and she told me to wait a bit. Then she went inside and brought a big bag. There were full of frozen dumplings in the bag. He left it to me to give you if you came by. He was so sorry for leaving suddenly. And he said if you study hard and work hard, you'll be able to meet him again someday. I cried a lot when I got the dumplings, and the lady said, "Don't cry, student. He has lived all alone his life, but that gentleman has lived well because people are looking for him." I couldn't believe it, and more than that, I was angry. I was disappointed because how could you do this to me? Even if he leaves, he could at least say hello. I thought he was my friend. I don't think it was to him. I told my parents when I got home. Both of you were surprised. I threw the dumplings in the fridge that he gave. I was disappointed. My parents said you don't know about people's lives. There must be some reason, but I couldn't listen to them. I was so depressed for a while. Whenever I saw the dumplings, I thought of him. But time is medicine. School started again. As I lived a busy life, my broken heart gradually healed. Maybe it's not healing, but it had been pushed back by a busy life. But whenever I think of him, I felt like I had a hole in my chest. Can we meet again in my life? Are you doing healthy? I was frustrated. I just had more questions every day. Time went by and I finally graduated the college. Fortunately, I got a job right away. That's when I joined the current company. I was single for 4 years in college. I started dating while working. One day, I had lunch with my coworkers. I went to a nearby restaurant to eat. I had lunch for a while, and then the table next to me. I heard a loud noise. I saw a baby mother was upset with blushing on her face. What I heard was that she asked for 2 steamed eggs for free for the baby to eat. Although she asked for a small amount of the dishes, it was on the menu with a price. So, of course, the restaurant said no. That's why she was arguing with the staff. The staff told her that if she ordered the steamed eggs, she would feed the baby and take the leftovers, but the mother made a fuss about the customer service. It was ridiculous even to me. So then, how would the restaurant staff feel? I saw that he seemed to be around my age, but responded calmly to this ridiculous situation. I would have yelled to get out of there right now. She threatened to write a review on the internet and warned them. I started to get angry when I heard that. You're trying to ruin other people's business because of your greed to save money, so I said something. Excuse me, it's not that there's no steamed egg on the menu. It's a set menu. Isn't it right to pay for it? Or do you pack your food to feed the baby? Why are you blaming the restaurant? Honestly, I was surprised when I said it. My colleagues looked at me and wondered. That mother's face turned red and people around said something. Then she quickly paid for the food and ran away. When the mother left, the staff came up to me and thanked me. He was worried about how to deal with it because he wasn't the owner of the restaurant. But thanks to me, it went well and he asked for my phone number. He said he wanted to thank me properly. I gave him my number inadvertently. A few days later, the staff called me and the owner of the restaurant told me he'd treat me to dinner. I had a conversation with him over dinner, and it turned out that he was the head chef at the restaurant, not a server. The more we talked, the more I felt like we were connected. I guess there was no big age gap with him. So we started dating to go out and watch movies. And after a while, we started dating. My boyfriend said he wanted to open up a restaurant, so he's saving money. Maybe it's because he just lives with his dad. He seemed to think about his dad a lot. From my point of view, I often felt jealous. But that doesn't mean that he is Papa's boy. When we dated for about 2 years, my boyfriend said that finally his dream came true. He opened his restaurant. I was so proud of him. He achieved his dream without help from his parent. After that, we went around searching for a place and appliances. And finally, on the day of the sign-up for lease, my boyfriend asked me to marry him. I had faith in my boyfriend's heart while dating, so I said yes. So I visited my boyfriend's house for the first time. I bought new clothes to look nice. Finally, the door opened, and there was his dad who dressed up nicely and welcomed me. I was so nervous that I couldn't put my head up and bowed 90 degrees. Then I slowly raised my head. My dear, I was so surprised that I almost collapsed. The dumpling older man is standing in front of me who vanished 8 years ago without a word. He recognized me and he was surprised too. Jessie, why are you here? Hey, mister. I hugged him and complained why he left without telling me. He patted my back and apologized for a long time. My boyfriend calmed his dad and me and asked how we knew each other. So I told him about our story. My boyfriend was surprised when he heard that. That's understandable. Is this typical fate? I heard about the older man through my boyfriend, whom I didn't know. He and his wife got divorced when my boyfriend was young. It was around that time when he moved to my neighborhood. He heard from his mom that their divorce was because of his dad's gambling, and he blamed him a lot because he was young. And then, when he was in high school, he ran into a man who came to his house. It was his mom's ex-boyfriend. It turned out she had an affair with another guy. That's why she got divorced. But my mother's parents were wealthy, so she put pressure on his dad about financial support. The poor man simply gave up custody of his son's future. When my boyfriend found out the whole truth, he started working part-time and saved up money to visit his dad one day. And then he got in touch with his dad through one of his relatives. Fortunately, his relative got them a place to live together. From that day, I wasn't able to see him. He made me an ice bag for my swollen eyes from crying. I'm sorry, things went so fast that I couldn't even explain it to you. After I heard all of his circumstances, the disappointment in him was gone, and I thought it was a good thing. Thanks to him, the man I liked, I'm taking him as my father-in-law, right? He was happy about this too. I'm so happy that you will be my daughter-in-law. I wanted to have a daughter, and this is awesome. My boyfriend thanked me too. If it weren't for me, my dad would have been lonely. Thank you for standing by my father. On that day, when I came back home, I told my parents about this. They were surprised to hear it and said, "What a coincidence." Well, sometimes I can't believe it too. And it's finally the wedding day. As soon as my parents and he saw each other, they hugged and shared the joy of a reunion. Like family reunions, they expressed their disappointment at that time. But that's not how you leave. My daughter was having a hard time after that. She grumbled at him. Probably to meet him dramatically, we all had to say goodbye like that. He was pleased to meet my parents as parents of his son-in-law. They started to talk about the wedding after catching up with each other. He said we all know each other's circumstances. He said there's nothing to show off and bring anything because it's a pleasure to let me get married to his son. But my parents wanted to do something for me because they don't have many children and didn't want to regret not giving anything. They told him not to worry too much, so that's how the meeting went well in a good mood. When the wedding was just around the corner, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my husband's mother. She said that she got my number from a relative and she had something to say. I think she called me without contacting our son because she felt guilty. The thing was like this: how you cannot say hello to your mother-in-law and not be invited to the family meeting. She mentioned about parenting of my parents and got upset. I didn't get invited when you guys needed to discuss wedding items and the wedding fee. If I didn't know my husband and mother's situation, I wouldn't think, but already all I knew, I was shocked to get this call. And yet, she insisted on her rights all that time. So I was going to answer politely and hang up the phone quickly. Oh my God, she was shameless enough to be treated like my mother-in-law. So I couldn't hold it in, so I said one thing. "I'm sorry, I don't think you should be doing this to me even before getting married. My father-in-law and my husband's decision not to invite you to the meeting. What can I do about it? If you want to come, you should say to your son. If he wants to go, I'll go with him. I don't think I'm in a position to do this or that. You discuss it with your son, and after he decides, I'll go." And she said, "What such an attitude you have. I can't let you get married to my son." She was restless and upset. Her image as a mother-in-law wasn't already good, but I even hated her since then. I hung up and told my husband everything. Then he got so angry that he said I would never answer the phone again. He would deal with it in person. And a few days later, I got a message from my husband that he would meet his mom. Of course, it's a secret from my father-in-law. My husband didn't get home until late at night. From the day he met his mom, my husband was a little weird. He didn't call me. He looked like he had a problem, so I asked my husband, "Why? What did your mother say?" Do you want me to go and apologize if you can't? And my husband suddenly said this. Can we postpone our wedding? It's ridiculous. I can't believe we are postponing the wedding that's only a week away. I asked him why. He asked me not to ask why, but to do him a favor. I can't do that until I hear the reason. I said it flat out. Then, my mom attempted suicide. When I got a call, I found her lying in the hospital room. The person who I lived with her said that she was abandoned. She wasn't invited to the wedding and complained about what she was doing alive. She must have taken her meds. I have hated my mom so much. She tried to give up her life because of me. How can you pretend you don't know her son? I promised to convince my dad to invite her to the wedding. What can you do? It's hard for me to say this, but I don't think I can help it. Let's stop this marriage. For a moment, I thought my heart had stopped. How can you end it so quickly? I am so embarrassed that I can't say anything. My boyfriend just got up and left. It felt like the sky was falling. I never thought I'd be abandoned in a moment by a man I'd believed in. Back home that night, I cried and fell asleep. The next day, I took sick leaves at work, lying down all day. But that night, my father-in-law came to my house. He said he heard about the breakup. He asked me what had happened between the two of us. I thought there was nothing to hide when we were done, so I told him about my mother's suicide attempt. And then his face was frozen, and he told me to take care of myself and left right away. And a week later, I was able to have a wedding. What the hell happened? The day my father visited my house, I told him about my mother-in-law. That's why he guessed it was a show too. He visited her right after, and he found out that her suicide attempt was a lie. He doesn't usually get angry, but once he gets angry, it's terrifying. So my father was so angry that he couldn't let go. As soon as he went into his mother's house, he destroyed all the furniture in the house, and then he gave her an old memorandum. He received a memorandum from his father-in-law when the two got divorced a long time ago, and that's where her disgrace was. The truth is why the two got divorced. My father-in-law wrote this memorandum and said, no matter how much you hate her, isn't she the mother of your baby? I kept it a secret from Michael, even though I was falsely accused. I can't do this anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'll tell the execution that you won't be able to show your face in front of your siblings. You cheated on your second brother-in-law. I'm going to tell your sister everything. At that, she got on her knees and apologized. If she gets caught by your elder sister about cheating with her brother-in-law, she was in a miserable and pathetic situation. You fool. Do you live like this when you're old? You were immature when you were young, but you're still adolescent when you were young. But looking at your 60s, why do you split the couples to satisfy your greed? It's not for you that I haven't talked about all the dirty things you've done so far. It was all because of my baby. How dare you ruin my son's marriage? You'd better call Michael and tell him that suicide was a show, and you're not going to put yourself in their shoes. Promise me. Otherwise, I'll send them this memorandum to your sister's house, all right? She called my husband and begged him to forgive her for doing something wrong. Then my husband came over and begged me that he was careless. I forgave him because my father-in-law worked hard to fix it. Finally, we got married. After many ups and downs, and we set our first home next to the father-in-law's house. My father-in-law told me to get a better place, and he would pay for it, but I insisted I didn't want to go. He's my father-in-law, but he's like my old friend. We live close to each other and talk about the past and chat about my husband's bad things, and of course, it's secret to my husband. By the way, I heard about the mother-in-law from a relative a few days ago. She eventually got caught by her sister about the affair with her brother-in-law and kicked out of her house. But what is shocking is who passes the secret to her second elder sister. It was mother-in-law's boyfriend who lived together. At first, he approached the brother-in-law to make money but failed. He said everything intentionally. He was foolish that he didn't expect all the living costs from the second elder sister's pocket. Anyway, she lost her siblings, lost her house, and lost her man. She deserved that. On the other hand, my father-in-law was having a good time. A lady among the regular customers liked my father-in-law. He went out to date without letting his son know. Maybe that's why he was in a good mood these days. And his face was blooming. I felt mightily rewarded as his love coach. We have so many connections with others. I don't think there'll be another one like a solid relationship like my father-in-law. My father-in-law, who became a father-in-law from a friend, I hope he has been happy for a long time. Thank you for listening to my long stories, and I hope you have happiness in your home. Please leave me support and good advice in the comments. Likes and subscriptions are a big help to me. I hope you have a great day today.